the whole process were extremely unorthodox, to put it mildly. We're working through Holbeck Station CID in Leeds, but we're also undercover and operating under the instructions of DCIs Michael Martin and Roger Frampton of AC10. That's the anti-corruption unit based at London Met. There had recently been a particularly brutal murder of a middle-aged black man. My colleague in the CID had arrested the prime suspect, a young man named Michael Gallagher. We'd done some background checks on him, and before charging him with the offence at Holbeck Nick, we took him to an undisclosed location. My colleague reckoned that it would help to ascertain whether they were guilty of this nasty and what we strongly felt were a racially motivated crime.
You use now the collective term we. Who was party to this alongside yourself?
My called DS Jack MacIntyre.
I take it you are seeking a confession from the suspect?
Yes, I was.
Thank you. Please continue.
An informant to MacIntyre had mentioned that he frequented a particular pub in the town centre. So MacIntyre went along there, and by sheer good fortune, he saw the suspect as he was emerging from the pub on his own. So he nicked him from behind, cuffed him, and rendered him unconscious by the use of chloroform before sticking him in the car. I met up with the pair of them at the location, and in one of the grubby rooms there we set up a movie camera with an Elmer brand Super 8 model. It was a bit rough and ready, nothing like your sophisticated digital devices of nowadays, but I had a magnetic strip on the film which could pick up sound. So it were quite good for those days anyway. It belonged to MacIntyre because he wanted to film the interview with Gallagher. I guess this was a regular thing, him making round toward recordings to show his associates, but he said it was to be kept by him as a memento. That was the reason he gave. So I went along with it. I'm wearing a surveillance microphone, which were being accessed by AC10 officers in an incognito van. So we had an additional audio recording of the event. I understand the anti-corruption units have since recovered the film. Did they pass it on to your film crew?
Yes, Mr. Pearce, we do have it. We have enhanced the audio and visuals as much as possible. We will be using it in this documentary. Now, please, tell me what happened in the location you mentioned.
Well, I remember how Gav about when he came round, like, clearly very distressed. But he was trying to mask his true feelings. The day were brought home to me. A day etched in my memory. A day I'll never forget. Your name? What's your name?
What?
Confirm your name.
Michael Gallagher.
Age and date of birth.
23. Born 56.
Right. Michael Gallagher. So, got a job.
Where exactly are we? What is this? Did you drug me? What the hell's happening? Why did you do that? Who are you? Why am I here? Why did you bring me here? You police. This isn't a police station, is it? Have you kidnapped me? Is that what this is?
I didn't need that. Right, ask the fucking questions. You answer them. Got it? Understand? Do you comprehend? Ah, for your information, I'm Detective Sergeant John Pearce, CID, West Yorkshire Police. Do you have a job?
I'm a civil engineer.
Good. Good. Right. Ah, today's Sunday, right? Are you a man of faith? What? Have you been undertaking any form of spiritual counselling, so to speak? By that I mean, have you talked to a priest? A minister? Well, that about you out like that?
No. I haven't been undertaking counselling, nor have I chatted with anyone like that.
Anyone from within the medical profession?
Well, I saw my doctor. They said that I may have a stress-related condition. And this isn't exactly helping.
You want to see a psychiatrist? Do you have any form of mental illness? Depression?
No!
Off your chump? Mentally deranged? None of that stuff?
No! Look! What is this? Why am I here?
So, religious faith, what are you?
I'm a Catholic. If indeed it bears even the remotest connection towards anything superficially resembling your business.
Miss Math recently? In a confession lately?
Well, as a matter of passing interest, it would seem that I've missed math today, actually. The result of my being doped, kidnapped and detained here. Much against my personal choice, I might add.
Oh, well, you see, dear Mr. Gallagher, that's bad. That may result in a mortal sin. Not at all a pleasant proposition in the eyes of our Maker, the Almighty. See, the reason I ask that is because I have to know how you're doing up here. See, missing Mass and not confessing. Well, should you inadvertently happen to snuff it, so to speak, before having had a chance to unload, gain contrition true from the priest of your choice, well, it kind of adds an indelible stain in your soul. Apparently, needs to get burned off to get rid of it. See, there's a sell-by date kind of thing there. You see, if you don't confess in time, like, no, you don't get the automatic deletion. Oh, see, you're stuck with it. Understand? In case you don't know that.
Is that so?
Yes. Now, you will need to get that nasty, bad, mortal sin burned off. Now, I have to do that for you if you like. If you cooperate with me, because I have a hotline to redemption. Open all hours. Just cut out the middleman. You confess to me. I clean up your soul and lock your uncle.
You're quite clearly deranged. This is utterly ridiculous.
So, to the date in question. Monday, 14th April 1979. Where were you from 5 p.m. on that date?
What? How am I supposed to recall a random date?
Erase the Monday. That helps.
Oh. Easter. Monday. Let me think. Oh, it was a colleague's birthday. We went for a steak at the Burnley Inn on the High Street.
So, return to Monday 14th. We then have the other sins staining your character. Small matter. A chap called Paulton Levy Phillips, who is deceased. So, tell me about the altercation between you and Mr. Phillips.
Who?
Oh, stop funnying about. Oh, damn well who he is. Was, sorry. So you tell me exactly.
Okay. He was looking really dodgy. I saw him. He was cagey, suspicious, creeping about. Furtive, you know.
No, you're going to come under a lot of scrutiny over this. This person being white, would you have felt the same way?
Well, yes. Probably.
You see, this man had no criminal record whatsoever. But a good type. Mild mannered fella. Here. Sit down. Right. Now, let's talk about you. Michael Gallagher. Well educated and from good English stock. So, what? From how you've just described the now deceased, do you accept that you have somewhat extreme views?
I beg your pardon.
You're racist?
No, I am not.
Admit it.
I repeat, I am not a racist.
Why do you say that?
Because that's not what I am.
I think it is.
It's not.
You are.
I am not.
You hate blacks.
I don't like them.
You despise them.
I put up with them.
No, you don't.
I do. Admittedly, somewhat reluctantly, but I do.
You can't stand them.
I tolerate them.
You detest them.
I do not.
You do.
I don't.
Tell the truth.
I am. That's what I'm doing.
You're evading the truth.
On the
You're
contrary,
evasive.
I reject that.
You reject blacks.
I told you.
You didn't mean it.
You're questioning my integrity.
You're a liar, that's why.
This is ridiculous.
Just want some honesty.
Honesty
Yes, never heard of it.
is what I'm giving
You're
you.
giving me untruths and racist opinions.
I am not.
Yes, you are.
How can you say that?
It's because I can.
You've no right.
I certainly have.
And why is that?
I'm in the police.
And that's why I'm here.
Why you're here?
You did this to me.
Did what?
You made me this way.
We made you a racist.
I'm not a racist.
So what are you then?
I did what I had to do.
Which was
Your fucking job.
my job.
All of you.
All of them.
The police.
How are we to blame for this?
Cause and effect.
Just own up.
To what?
The murder of Paul and Levy Phillips.
Why should I?
Because you did it.
I did not.
Yes, you did. See that? That was taken obviously before the stab wound. The expert stab wound to his neck, of course. Apparently, so I'm led to believe, severing the carotid artery in the neck cuts off the blood supply to the brain, leaving the poor victim conscious for up to 30 seconds as it spurts out so much blood it causes asphyxiation and death. And you bloody hell knew that, didn't you? Doesn't even resemble manslaughter, more like cold, calculated, premeditated murder. Now, obviously, a lot of questions have been brought up, as in very unarmed. Could it have been self-defence? Did he have on his person anything that could be construed as a weapon?
Isn't it enough that he assaulted me? Punched me repeatedly. And then when I started yelling for help, he grabbed my head and started to slam it into the ground.
Chuck it in for the like this.
Don't remember.
You don't remember. How come you've no indication of bruising at all? No black eyes, cut nose, bruised face, none of that.
No. It all cleared up. So what?
Now, do you recognise the chap in this photograph? The same chap that you saw the night of these events?
I can't tell for certain. They do all look depressingly similar.
Simple as that. That's his neck, that is. After the stab wound. The expert stab wound to his neck, of course. Now, I'm showing you these because you're going to have to deal with this in open court, under oath, and under some very, very serious pressure. That's just the way these things work. Now, I don't mean to torture you. You're going to have to talk to me about the situation before it goes anywhere else. You listen to me.
He was nothing more than a revolting, low-life piece of black shit.
See, where the big question comes into play is this. What is it that enraged him so badly? Could it possibly be that maybe he felt he was being taunted by you? Isn't it that you provoked Phillips? You goaded him. In fact, you yelled insults at him. And this story of yours of him skulking around suspiciously was not the case at all. Now, if that indeed is what took place, it may very well change things quite substantially. Then all of a sudden you're looking at something you never dreamed you'd be looking at. That's why we're here today. See, my purpose in life, my raison d'etre, if you will, in the light of your prevarication, is to inform you the consequences of your actions. Next on the list is this: prison. The harsh reality of incarceration, which is ominous by its looming presence on the very cusp of your horizon. Now, are you all set for a life in a world where the daily fragrance will be the odious putrid aroma of 2,000 incarcerated men's urine, half a ton of hot, steaming, overboiled cabbage, 10,000 wet anal expulsions of noxious air, where you will receive the venal torment of an unwashed, fetid 8-inch hard-on being rammed agonisingly into your tiny arsehole without lubrication, obviously. Or a honking, fox-ridden pair of foul socks. Big Nigel the rapist, up in the foot, none of which you've seen a wash in 6 weeks, being stuck right into your mouth. Simply because he wants to. Then laughs Larry, who has procured a set of rusty industrial pliers, will remove all of your teeth without anaesthetic, obviously, so you can give him a better blowjob.
Excuse me. Are these really necessary now?
Oh, it's not. You're not going anywhere.
Thank you.
Now, with the card in your possession, it is. You are membership number 1666 of the NSAP. Tell me what that is.
It's just a group of friends.
Friends. Friends of what? Tell me what the NSAP is.
Just friends. A club. Sort of.
NSAP. Tell me about it.
We meet. We actually met that night in the Burnie Inn. That's where we meet.
So where they call his birthday party.
No.
So you've been lying to me?
No, not quite, not really.
Don't piss in my pocket. Tell me it's fucking raining. You and your colleagues, you were the National Socialist Action Party. A right-wing fascist mob with a relentlessly racist agenda. So once again, have you got problems with black people?
No.
I'm going to ask you again, this time I want the truth. Do you have problems with anyone who isn't white, Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon? Background, Sonny Jim. Where I'm gravitating to here is this. Isn't it the case that Mr. Paul Levy Phillips was, to all intents and purposes, just a normal, respectable man who happened to be black? But within your fucked up, xenophobic, illiberal, hatred-fueled proclamation, people like him an affront to your sensibilities.
No comment.
Well, I could comment and hazard a pretty accurate fucking guess in the affirmative, swastika boy. Something you uttered at volume, no doubt, got him so enraged he reacted with force. I'm telling you right now, that man had no violent background. No homicidal tendencies that we could find. So what made him snap? He wasn't drunk and he went on drugs. So could you fill in that blank?
I didn't.
How close to your car did he get?
Maybe a car.
What set him off?
I don't know.
Did you call him a chombo, Cliffy, a coon, a spade, a darky, a gittle monkey? See, it doesn't fit. It's not fit the profile what you alleged occurred. When you walked up to your car. You accept my disrespect to him, Billy?
I didn't confront him, you see.
So you're not afraid of him, eh?
No,
That's it.
no.
So you shouted something. And he heard you. He beat you into your car quicker than I expected. Eh? So you don't go down like this. Eh? Start with black face. Stop getting obnoxious, stinking so hard, passing over you. And control. And all that you ate, slow and despise. Forcing you down, making you sick to your stomach. Black, festering close to something against you. Actually touching you. Oh, dearie. All that bile and anger. What did you say?
I called him a dirty, manky old black, dirty bastard fronted nigger. He was shut out from his mother's filthy cunt.
And what?
He let me go and pulled back, releasing his grasp. I had a knife, a blade in my sock. I had the knife in my fist, and I ran it, ripped it down beneath his jaw.
So you're telling me, you're admitting that you used a knife and severely, critically, fatally slashed him in the neck?
I panicked.
Go. Well, I still don't get it. All this You say you're not a racist.
I'm not.
No. Why did you go to antagonise them, taunt them, abuse them? Why did you hate this particular, specific, middle-aged black man with so much rage and vengeance? Because
Look, for fuck's sake, don't ask me that! Don't make me say it, please!
say it.
Don't! Just leave it!
Say it. Say
I
it.
can't!
Say it.
I can't!
You'd better tell me. Now.
Last year, my young sister, Laura, it was her 4th birthday.
Right, sister, go on.
I was with her and my mum, and we were at a Radio 1 roadshow in Whitby. All happened so quickly. I went over to get some ice cream for her and my mum. Mum stopped and opened her handbag. She wanted to give me some cash. It only took a minute or two. And then, when we looked round, Laura was gone. She just disappeared. She had a habit of wandering off. Mum was frantic. I was frantic. Panicked. Screamed out her name and shouted and raced around everywhere. But Whitby's so full of side streets and cobbled lanes that Mum was demented. So out of her mind with worry. She was crying and I was yelling out Laura's name, and it must have been about 20 minutes later. We'd been searching around everywhere, aimlessly, frantically. And then I turned into a lane, and I saw an alcove. And then I saw it. It was that Phillips, that bastard from television, Jimmy fucking Savile. He had his trousers down. They ripped off Laura's dress and her pants. She was naked. He was raping her from behind. She was screaming. Then he began pushing himself into her mouth.
Jesus.
And then they both saw me, and they just threw Laura down to the ground. She was numb and sobbing. And then Savile, he stared at me. He laughed. And then Keen Phillips ran off down the lane and into a car. But then there was my mum. When she saw what happened, took it in and froze for a moment, like she turned to stone, and walked expressionless towards Laura and just held her close. Then it happened. She looked up to the sky. Her mouth opened and so wide, tears just poured from both of her eyes. Absolute silence. Then it came. The noise that she made, it wasn't like a proper cry. It was the most terrifyingly loud, bleak, wailing noise. It would break any person's heart. Like nothing I'd ever heard before. That's what Savile did to my family.
I think you're wrong about Savile.
Oh, fuck this. Shut yourself, Pearce. I can't listen to any more of this fabricated bullshit. And as for you, I just need to clarify a couple of things with you, pal. Number one, with the savage butchering of a defenceless individual. And number two, you have made some very, very ugly remarks against a man who is treasured by the nation.
Treasured? Then he should be buried like treasure, 20 feet deep, never to be dug up again. Preferably with his gargoyle head caved in first.
My man, we certainly do seem to have an alarming tendency towards violence, don't we? You see, that will not do. We can't be having that. For he's revered, so he is. And that's all down to that fine charitable work that Mr. Savile does.
It's all that kindness
of his own heart.
It's all a front. Can't you see that? He's still out there! A grotesque bastard paedophile! Doing God alone knows what to other kids! And not one of your apathetic lot seems willing to go a solitary shit! I just wanted to achieve some fucking justice! Something your lot seem to be out paying to avoid doing! Something you're actually paid to do! I should be in a proper police station. And I need to see my MP.
And I need you to focus, pal. You see this here for you? Decision time. You have to decide where you're going with this wee story of yours. Are you a victim or are you a vigilante?
My MP.
Your MP. Fine. Right. This MP of yours, does he have an actual name?
He's quite well known. Smith. Cyril Smith. Him.
And you said you dropped into a police station in Manchester to report this. When? When was that? Last year?
Yes. Yes, Stretford it was. Wait. I remember you. That Scottish accent. You had a moustache back then. I knew I'd seen your face. That's right, you were there. You and all those other police officers, you laughed. You did nothing about it, did you? Nothing.
Now I know why they call you all the filth.
Right! John, a word.
What?
We need to have a word outside. But first... Right. This Smith character that Gallagher mentioned. Cyril Smith, the MP. Do you know him?
Yes, of course I know him. Huge fat one. Can hardly bloody miss him. What about him?
Right. If Gallagher reckons he's his MP, well,
what?
okay, listen. There was an article some time back in a wee regional paper, the Rochdale Alternative Press. I'd hoped I wouldn't have to mention this, but
What did it say?
it did a piece on Smith, and it mentioned Jimmy Savile, and well, the cover-up of the complaints against him.
Cover-ups. Complaints? About what?
You'll see it soon enough. But it gave details on Savile and Smith's sexual abuse of some youngsters, and implicates Manchester and West Yorkshire forces as part of that cover-up. They claimed they've got irrefutable evidence against them and others, but most importantly against us in the force.
For Christ's sake! Is this real?
Sadly, aye, it is. And now, on top of that, we've got Gallagher's claim that Savile sexually abused his wee sister, and that we did fuck all about it when he came in to report it.
What the hell are you telling me?
I'm telling you this. No charges were ever brought on Gallagher's complaint, or on any of the other ones. Not a single one. And all the records destroyed.
What? You're actually telling me you knew about all this?
Mm-hmm.
And you did nothing?
That's right.
In the name of God, man. You deliberately kept quiet about everything.
Give me a fucking break, John. We had to keep quiet on it. We had no option. They made us sign the official bloody Secrets Act to keep our mouths shut. That's how serious this is. But now, with Phillips's murder, Christ, can you even begin to imagine Gallagher let loose in court? They'd blow the whistle on Savile, on Smith, but worse than that, much worse, they'd start on all of us in the force. This whole thing could just explode into one huge bastard of a mess. Gallagher has to be stopped. That's why I wanted us to bring him here, well out the road and away for the spotlight, before any formal interview back at Holbeck. I needed to know. I needed to hear how much he knows, and by fuck, he knows plenty.
I don't believe this. How could something like this happen?
We have to sort this out, you and me.
No bloody way! Fuck off! I didn't sign up for shit like this.
What the hell are you saying? We need to deal with
No
this.
chance! You should have refused to be part of the cover-up. You fucking bottled it. What does that say about you, man? Eh? It's your problem. You deal with it. I'm having nothing to do with it. Or you.
Don't you dare get on the wrong side of me, John. You don't want me as an enemy.
And you listen to me, MacIntyre. You might be able to frighten the shit out of the suspects. Your bully boy tactics don't scare me. Always known you were bent. Your slippery ducking and diving antics. Now this is something else. God alone knows why I agreed to take part in this ridiculous sordid clandestine farce. And not take him straight to the station, as we should have done. You fucking coerced me. I thought it was just to help you get a result. Now you tell me you've been right bang in the centre of an almighty cover-up with fucking low-life paedophiles. That poor lad in there, he said it all. We are filth. We don't seem to give a shit anymore if we ignore crimes like this. So you're dead right. I don't want you as my enemy. I sure as hell don't want you as a friend either. You corrupt, obnoxious Scottish cunt.
Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Like it or no, Pearce, you are involved. Okay, let's just calm down a wee bit here, eh? Before we leave here, I just want a last wee word with him, okay? Then we'll take him back to the Nick and get him charged. And you can maybe sort out a duty brief. Some naive young dickhead who won't ask too many awkward questions.
Gallagher's got a hell of a lot to be angry about.
Aye, maybe so. But look, come on, let's take him into the other room and I'll bring him round again. Don't forget the camera. Thanks, John.
What the fuck?
Sorry about that, Michael. Right, to business, eh? Now, Mr. Smith's a very busy man. Don't you worry. We're going to sort you out, right, good solicitor. So this is how we're going to play this. We're going to take you back to the station. We're going to go over this all over again. But in a much more civilised and friendly manner. As for the incident itself, well, you bumped into that Phillips character. A fracas ensued, and it all got a wee bit out of hand. Diminished responsibility, and all that shit. You don't have any previous, which is good, because that allows us to cut what we call here in the trade a deal. But in return for all that, there's just one very important thing. You leave Savile's name out here. Because mentioning him would bring far too much adverse attention to the case. You could find yourself in the wrong end of 20 bloody years, Michael. We don't want that, do we? Nah. So, keep your nose clean, bide your time, and you'll be out of there before you know it. 6 months tops. How does that sound, eh?
How does it sound? It sounds like...
Fuck you! You just listen to me, you ungrateful wee arsehole! You will do precisely what I fucking tell you to do! You get me? You will button it on Savile and take this arrangement! Because an alternative for you is you thinking about, son. Because I can see to it. Oh, and make no mistake that I will fucking see to it. The only way you come out of prison is in a wooden box. Or, at the very earliest, it'll be 2 very long decades before you're kicking about in a public street again. Boy, and in addition to that, your arse will be permanently pressing the seat of a fucking wheelchair. I hope we understand each other now. Do we?
You disgust me. All of you.
Aye.
You're a mole.
You scum! I'm just about up to here with your fucking outside! Fucking up!
Just get away from me! People need to know! They need to know!
Later that evening, following a brief interview back at Holbeck Police Station, Gallagher had a meeting with renowned QC Angela Bradbury.
My job differs fundamentally from a standard legal aid solicitor, Mr. Gallagher, as I am a QC, a Queen's Counsel, in other words, a barrister appointed by the Queen on the suggestion of the Lord Chancellor. Queen's Counsel is a status conferred by the Crown that is recognised by courts. Members such as myself enjoy the privilege of sitting within the bar of the court. Put more simplistically, however, I am a skilled and experienced criminal defence lawyer. I represent the people of this world who have some need of more humanity in their case. I identify and interview new witnesses, and I gather records that the prosecution lawyers can't find in order to test the Crown's case against the defendant. If the Crown's case crumbles, or if the accused is found guilty, I then use this fresh evidence to ensure acquittal, or to challenge the prisoner's conviction and sentence in the Court of Appeal. Failure to develop evidence is a theme in many cases where the charges can be reduced substantially and, in extreme cases, actually dropped. Under-resourced criminal defence lawyers often struggle to find the time to interview witnesses before memories fade and data evaporates. Indeed, some solicitors even assume it's not even part of their job, that investigation should solely be a province for the police. I should mention that I'm given to understand that Detective Sergeant Jack MacIntyre originally insisted an inexperienced duty solicitor be appointed for you.
Well, why then, of all people, are you here?
Well, I think we can understand DS MacIntyre's desire to have an inexperienced solicitor involved to assure his vested interests were met. However, I spoke at length with Detective Sergeant John Pearce. While he in no way condoned your action in killing Phillips, he finds himself somewhat in the horns of a dilemma. Your assault victims, i.e. Paul Donlevy Phillips, well, his real name was actually Benjamin Hardy. He was an undercover police officer. He was working a deep cover operation on a major joint task force case with A10 and the Serious Crime Squad to infiltrate a paedophile network that had Jimmy Savile close to its core. The network includes high-ranking police officers, politicians, show business celebrities, and newspaper editors, and it's strongly linked to aspects of Freemasonry. This information will never be revealed in a court of law and must not be made reference to by you. Do you understand that?
What's happening to me? This is insane! How do you know all this?
I was recommended and informed by Detective Chief Inspector Frampton of A10 and the Serious Crime Section. They've asked me to speak with you as they feel there are major obstacles ahead in their path to get this case under control again.
The following morning, Gallagher were taken from police station cells to court and then remanded in custody at HMP Wandsworth. I had made a confidential report including the information from the Rochdale Alternative Press. It made for shocking reading. I got it delivered to Detective Chief Inspector Roger Frampton of Scotland Yard's Anti-Corruption Unit. He called me down to London. Frampton had a trusted officer film our brief conversation outside. On the corruption within West Yorkshire Police, he was planning a major internal investigation into all the corrupt officers involved at the time of the complaints made against Jimmy Savile, Cyril Smith and others.
Really grateful you've intervened in this Michael Gallagher case. Thanks for involving me in this procedure.
No worries. I'll be speaking to Savile tomorrow afternoon, but in the meantime, you said you had something you wanted to show me.
Yes. See, we basically thought that all the Manchester complaints had been destroyed, but thankfully a couple of the more decent officers had decided to hold a few statements back and put them in storage. Now we can look at that in detail later, but what I've got here is a transcript of an article from the Rochdale Alternative Press. That's basically a summary, an outline of all the offences. It's just that bit there and over the page.
Jesus Christ, John.
Yeah.
The Rochdale Boys' Home where Cyril Smith operated, that is the one he co-founded with little more than a brothel and torture chamber in permanent use just over 10 years ago. The fact that word got out and rapists as far as Sheffield would head there in an order to abuse the boys. Smith had a master key to let him into every room, despite Rochdale elite. Putting boys over his knee and beating their naked buttocks.
Disgusting.
He smashed children's teeth out with hammers and forced them to have sex. Good. However, the county constabulary was reluctant to investigate. Reluctant? So it took over an inquiry and intervened, but Smith was so certain that police would avoid him, he was weeping put down. Oh, Jack McCann helped him. He was the local Rochdale's Labour MP back in the 1960s.
McCann.
The law officer was equally employed, and he killed the case stone dead. His good name cleared. His good name cleared. Smith carried out abusing boys well into the 1970s, and following a meeting at a medieval banquet with Chief Constable Dennis Hibbert, he was introduced to Jimmy Savile. They then began an association where both parties engaged trouble-free and serious sexual abuse of youngsters, male and female. Smith himself was also widening his net to include some liberal activists. Some furious officers, David Steele, such against liberalism. Power leads to abuse, and whether they are celebrities or priests in the Catholic Church, if you allow vicious men to become untouchable, you run the risk that they will be seriously sexually abuse any woman or child they desire. If, as with Jimmy Savile or Cyril Smith, you treat abusers as national treasures, you run the additional risk that police officers or reporters will back away in fear of provoking an imposition. God. John, thanks very much for bringing this to my attention.
Back inside, DCI Frampton then played me an audio recording made by his colleague DCI Michael Martin and DS David Adams.
I am recording this voluntary telephone conversation between myself, Detective Inspector Michael Martin of Anti-Corruption Unit 10, speaking with Detective Sergeant David Adams. Now, DS Adams, please speak openly and candidly and tell me how you became aware of detailed public complaints regarding serious child abuse allegations involving Jimmy Savile, Cyril Smith and others, and which were apparently abandoned and destroyed, with these actions being condoned by and within elements of West Yorkshire Police.
Yes, sir. Chief Constable Dennis Ibberts had held a meeting at Stretford Station in Manchester. There we were all told to abandon the development of any complaints made against Savile and Smith and associated others, and that any further accusations of this sort were to be referred directly to him and not through procedural channels. We each of us were then obliged to sign the Official Secrets Act. Then there were these so-called tea-drinking excursions at the home of Jimmy Savile. They took place in that's Savile's, penthouse in Leeds, up on the 5th floor overlooking Roundhay Park. That's where he began this weekly ritual, and he called it his Friday morning club. Well, they were attended by people Savile trusted, a group of prominent local businessmen, city councillors and the like, from Leeds and Manchester.
Tell me, DS Adams, did any names come up?
Just one name came up, Detective Sergeant Jack MacIntyre. One of the chaps told me that on one occasion the group were asked to leave the room to allow just Savile and MacIntyre to talk alone. Now, most of us are familiar with surveillance techniques So we set up some basic equipment and we overheard what was an intriguing talk between Savile and MacIntyre. Savile said something to him about getting in touch with Surrey police because he was keen to sort out a situation with them, and MacIntyre could more easily manage the arrangement. I found out later what the situation was that he was referring to. Now what happened were, well, our beat Bobby had been riding his bike past a lay-by 2 nights earlier, and he chanced upon Savile's Rolls Royce, parked up in the darkness. So he shone his torch inside the car, and he clearly made out it was Savile with that familiar face and streaky white hair, and there beside him was a very timid-looking young girl, no older than about 10 years of age. So the copper asked Savile what he were up to. "I'm waiting for midnight," he replied. "She'll be moist enough by midnight. Now piss off if you want to keep your job." So the constable duly cycled off, but later on back at the station, he told all of this to his sergeant. He told him to shut up and not mention us again, ever, because Savile had friends in high places. Well, the constable was very concerned about it, so, though in strict confidence, he spoke to me in CID.
Thank you, Detective Sergeant. I am now ending this recording.
Next day, DCI Frampton managed to get Savile into Marylebone Station for what Savile assumed were an informal interview, and he deliberated in some detail on the heinous crimes Savile and others had committed. Savile didn't say very much. He moaned a few times, staring blankly at us, an unlit cigar in his mouth, sucking it off as if we're all used to him. Then we played back some recordings of sexual abuse victims.
So, yeah, he did it to me. Savile molested me. It was just a few years ago. I was 14. It was right after I'd appeared on his show. He promised me, he said he'd get me a Jim will fix it badge. Those things were highly prized, you see, and I wanted to show it off to my friends and the scouts and at school. Anyway, I'd spent the day on the set of the show, and I got a chance to go racing a milk float all around Brands Hatch on the actual racing track. It was amazing. It was a fantastic day. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. The actors, them that played Starsky and Hutch, Paul Michael Glazer and David Soul, we were in the studio too. And Starsky, he shook my hand and ruffled my hair. Oh, it was so exciting. Savile, he then told me that I could earn a badge of my very own, rather than sharing a group one with my scout friends, and that was what I really wanted. So he took me into a dressing room. It was in there that it happened. He took off his trousers and his underpants, and at that stage he was flaccid. He asked me to touch him, I was almost in a trance. It was surreal, but I did as he asked, and I stroked his penis. Oh God! But one thing that remains with me, well, the horrible stench of him from his body, urine, sweat, and shit. Oh, it was beyond obnoxious. Anyway, he forced me down against the dressing table, and he ripped down my shorts and my pants, and he rubbed himself against me, and he climaxed immediately. And then he threw me down to the floor, and he wiped himself down with a towel. And after I'd done up my shorts, Savile warned me. He said not to tell a living soul. It became really scary, and he said, "Don't you dare tell anyone. Don't you even tell your mates. We know where you live." And then he said, "Nobody would believe you anyway. I'm King Jimmy."
I was just 13, 7 years ago. I was approached at the railway station. He spotted me in my school uniform and told me I looked really cold and would I fancy a cup of tea. I instantly knew who he was from TV. He was easy to recognize in his tracksuit. I just remember being very starstruck and thinking, wait until I tell everybody about this. He brought me a cup of tea and a cake and asked me all sorts of questions. I told him I was playing truant and he wanted to know if I did it often. When I told him I had to go, he said, "Can you give me your phone number?" I thought it was a strange thing to ask, but his whole experience was just surreal. I wanted to give him my phone number, but he said that it would be too busy, a line, and then he asked if there was another number he could contact me on. Well, you see, back then, I lived with my grandmother. I was there because things weren't great at home, so I gave him my grandmother's number, but I never ever thought he would call. But then, about 3 weeks later, he did ring our phone number and just wanted to arrange a meeting. And the phone went and my mum answered, but it went dead when she picked up. And then about 10 minutes later, it rang again, and this time I answered it. And Savile recognized my voice and said, "From now on, refer to me as Vince. Can you be at Leeds Station at 3 p.m. tomorrow?" I can't believe it now when I said yes. He was famous, you see. I thought my friends would be envious and impressed. Anyway, I went alone to the train station, and this huge car pulled up. The window went down and a man peered out, moving to me, waving to come over. The door opened, so, well, I got into the car. And we sped off to what was to be Savile's penthouse home. Yeah, roughly it was like on outskirts of Leeds. And then the man, the driver that is, he led me into a lift and up to his big flat. The door opened, and standing there was Savile, waiting. He gave me a glass of orange squash, and we sat talking, and he told me about his charity work and shows. I remember the inside of the place. It was very untidy and cluttered, and worn carpets and white chairs. There were framed pictures everywhere with him and famous people like Prince Charles and that boxer with a belt over his shoulder. He talked to me like really close. He wasn't too physical that time. He said that he has to be careful, especially with the birds. No, nothing else happened that time. As his phone rang and he told me he had to leave on urgent pop business, so I finished my drink and I was driven back to the station. But he called me again a few weeks later, just before my 14th birthday. Exactly the same thing happened, but this time though he offered me alcohol and said that we should celebrate my birthday. And yeah, alright, I think. Thank you. So I drank it quickly, and then I felt very odd, a blurry kind of feeling came over me, so I had to go to the toilet, but inside there was no lock on the door. I tried to be quick, but he came in with just these vile, baggy fawn-colored pants on. I could see he was aroused, and he made me take his pants off, and then I undressed too. And he forced himself into me over the sink as he looked at himself in the mirror. Looking back, I'm sure he'd put something like a drug in that drink. Gin, I think it was. But it's something else. I felt so hazy and disorientated, and such terrible, awful pain too. He smelled so horrible and disgusting. Bad breath and terrible body odor. He whipped my breasts with his belt and bit me on my chest and between my legs. And then, I don't know if I can say this. He peed over my head and breasts and then slapped my face, and I fell on the floor. I woke up later and found myself in a garden near my house. My grandmother found me. She was so worried, but I just told her some friends had played a prank and we drank some alcohol. I'm so ashamed. Please, do something about it. Please.
It was back in 1977. My father had been taken into custody on suspicion of murder. He was a carpet delivery driver, and he'd found the body of a 70-year-old woman at the side of the road, and the police wrongly thought he might have killed her. Well, obviously, this was a traumatic time for me and my family. I was sent to my nan's, and she tried her best to keep me away from the news, but I was still upset and confused. So I went to a nearby park in Leeds and sat on a swing. And then this smart black car pulled up. A creepy-looking man got out, and he came over and asked me if I was okay. He walked with me into the woods behind the park. And once he got me in there, he lifted up my shirt, pulled off my trousers and pants, and rubbed some greasy stuff against my bum. And then I felt pain, like the worst kind of constipation in reverse, if you know what I mean. That's the only way I can describe it. I was 9. The man disappeared really quickly, and I lay there on the grass and twigs, not sure what had happened, but I was in total agony. I could barely walk in a straight line, and my head was pounding. Shortly after I left the woods, I thought to myself, if you don't say anything, it never happened. If you just don't tell anyone, it didn't happen. And I never did tell anyone. I went back to my nan's house. I remember the next night, a Thursday it was, my nan put on the telly for me, and it was Top of the Pops. The man who had raped me appeared on the screen. I had a panic attack and I ran to my room and hid under the bedclothes. It was Jimmy Savile. When I returned to my parents following my dad's release, I regressed for a while. I can still remember this feeling of abomination. I started wetting the bed. All the classic signs were there, but everyone thought it was because my dad had been suspected of murder. I somehow squashed the whole traumatic, terrible incident down into something hard and dark and tiny, and deliberately buried it as deep as I could inside. And in fact, I actually forgot about it. I forgot about it so completely that when I accidentally saw a photo of Savile in the Daily Mirror soon after, all I knew was that I was really frightened of him. It was like every ounce of me knew, but I didn't remember it, so I must have blocked it. Yeah, I managed to block what I call the incident, but it affected everything in my life. You can feel that sense of panic, but not understand it or why it affects you on a daily basis. My life changed. When I was around 11, I joined an older gang so that I would have a bit of protection without really knowing why. I went a bit nuts in my teens, did drugs, started petty thieving, and as an adult, again, without knowing why, I always cut corners when walking the dog if it took me out too close to any woods. I went through my whole life not directly recalling the event, not really understanding what had happened to me. But every so often I'd have these massive depressions or anxiety attacks, really bad, dragging me into the pits of hell. It felt like the Book of Revelations. The attacks would last a few minutes, and sometimes I'd have to go to a clinic. In my 30s I tried counselling, but that didn't really help. It wasn't until 2 years ago that I went to see a clinical psychologist that something really changed. She asked me lots of technical questions and found that my problem areas were extreme anxiety around going away from home and feeling that the world was a bad place. She diagnosed me with PTSD and prescribed a particular treatment. I promised my wife I wouldn't speak about this, but I need to, because now I can remember most of what happened. Not everything, it's like a shattered mirror. I have fairly horrific images, but I can't make whole sequences. But the point of my treatment is not to recall every detail of the traumatic incident, but to access the feelings around it. You stop every 3 minutes or so to assess how high your stress levels have become. At the beginning, I was off the scale. I would cry uncontrollably, snot and saliva everywhere. In fact, the process was so difficult that I quit a couple of times, but gradually, as I repeated the therapy, my stress levels reduced. I'm not cheerful about it now, but I own it now. Most of what happened has come back to me. Savile was a right fucking grubby bastard with piggy eyes and hateful stained and broken teeth like fangs, and body odour like a drain. For a while during the therapy, I was overcome by a desire for revenge. I wanted to meet up with Savile, sit man to man without any weapons and see what kind of person he was. But then I thought, well, this isn't going to happen, and he's probably still a disgusting, horrible, manipulative, paedophile sort of character, and he'd smirk at me over the table. Then it's going to go incredibly badly as I'd seriously rearrange his fucking features with my bare hands. You know, there were a couple of children's homes near where I grew up, and as a child I was very conscious of the kids who ran away. Once you've seen someone get assaulted, you don't forget. That never leaves you. I remember looking through the railings of a nearby children's home. All the lads looked like something out of Auschwitz, and there were glue scabs all round the girls' mouths. Those places were centres of abuse, physical, emotional, sexual. I'll think about that. I was so affected, and the abuse only happened to me once. I've had at least 3 breakdowns as a result. It's caused me a lifetime of anguish. So imagine what it was like there, all that brutality, and you can't escape. Imagine being in one of those places where someone like Savile or Cyril Smith was able to come into your home whenever they liked.
Well, I need to go back sometime to when I was 9-year-old. My 2 brothers and my sister had been sent to bed. I was being given a special treat, you see. I was being allowed to stay up late and watch TV with my stepfather. I was reading a comic and I was puzzled about a particular word. I wanted to know what the word assault meant. I asked him if it were like when funny people on TV say I've never been so assaulted in all my life. He looked at me in a really odd way. He had a strange expression on his face. I'll show you what he means, he said to me. He took me into my mother's bedroom. She was working late in a restaurant in town or something. He got hold of me and he undressed me. He took off my yellow pyjamas and then he took off all his clothes. I was just so scared. I knew it was wrong. I didn't understand. And he turned me over. So I was facing down onto the bed and he pulled me up so my bum was pointing up the way. I heard him. He spat in his hands and he rubbed them together. And then he forced his fingers deep inside me. into both my vagina and me anus. The pain was like nothing I've ever felt before, more excruciating than I can ever really describe. Sorry. Then he pushed himself. His penis. Deep into me. Nothing was ever the same for me again. The next day I could hardly walk. I was limping because of the pain. And I was afraid to go into school because I thought everyone could tell. But I couldn't go home because he were there, so I went into the side lane next to the playground with the railing. And I was crying, shivering and weeping. And my teacher found me there. She scolded me. And she told me I was a really bad girl. I already knew that. That nightmare, that awful night that started just because I asked an innocent question, well, it repeated again and again, over and over for ages. One time he even held a knife to my throat and threatened to kill me if I told anyone what he called our little secret, especially to my mum, or to anybody at all.
How long did this continue?
Must have been over 2 years. Then he was injured in an engineering accident or something, and he moved away. I never saw him again after that. But I'll never forget it, even now.
Can you tell me how these incidents equate to Jimmy Savile?
Because they're out there. Men like that, they're still getting away with it.
But Savile in particular?
My son, Alex. He was in Stoke Mandeville Hospital last year. He was only 8. He had to have his tonsils out. I'm sorry. This is so difficult. I only found this all out much later. When he came home, he went right. Really tearful and sad and you know. So I called the doctor. And he brought in a child psychotherapist. Later, a nurse from Stoke Mandeville were contacted with the doctor, and she came to my house to tell me more about what happened. It was during his 10 days in hospital. Alex were told by the nurse someone special were visiting. That's when it happened. The nurse opened the bed curtain. There was Savile. She closed the curtain, leaving Alex and him alone together. Savile sat down on a chair beside Alex and he squeezed his hand before sexually assaulting him. My son. Alex was so distressed. I'm so ashamed. When I visited him, he told me his own mum I didn't believe him. I couldn't even begin to imagine someone could do that to my boy. My unwell little boy. Eventually, though, I realised he was telling the truth. There were a few evenings after Alex came home from hospital. I was just putting him to bed and had my back to him. Folding a shirt. And he said, Mummy, penises hurt my bottom. I got down on my knees next to your bed and asked him to repeat it because I thought I hadn't heard him properly. And he said, Mummy, penises hurt my bottom. And penises in my mouth taste horrible. Over the next few months, 4 different psychotherapists independently examined my Alex. Each of them told me they all concluded that Alex had been sadistically and sexually abused by someone. You just don't believe this happens in real life, in your life. How can men do such horrible things?
Mrs. Barrett, I appreciate this is difficult, but please continue.
After I'd been told by the doctors what had happened to Alex, they kept him in for a few days in a secured clinic. That day I seized up. I sat in a dark corner of the spare room. I just lay in the bed. Overnight into the next day, I just lay there. I didn't eat, I didn't drink. I didn't even brush my hair or clean my teeth. I just lay there. But there's more that I should tell you. I made friends with one of the nurses. She works at Stoke Mandeville. She told me about another of Savile's victims. A girl. She was only 12. When he raped her. In the hospital's television room. She was going there in a nightdress. But on the way, a porter approached her and asked her where she was going. That porter was Savile, and he went with her. And when they got there, they were the only people in the room. And they were alone together. The nurse told me that Savile pulled up a nightdress. She had no knickers on. So he pulled down his trousers and he raped her. She didn't even know who Savile was. But my friend the nurse, she said later, she described him as horrible and he stank of smoke and disgusting sweaty body odour. That girl, she told another nurse that the porter had hurt her down there and she was told to say nothing because it might get everybody into trouble. That poor girl went to bed, but she awakened. She awakened in the middle of the night with Savile beside her bed where he sexually assaulted her again. After this, she was in despair. And she wrote a note explaining what had happened with her father's name, address and phone number and put it in the post box. in the hope that someone would contact him. But nobody did. Please, you need to get these people. You need to make it stop. Stop them doing things like they did to my son. The horrible bastards, filthy, disgusting bastards. My poor Alex. He's my little boy. They need locking up. They get a vile kick out of 5 minutes of their lives, 5 minutes of their stinking, disgusting, filthy lives. But they changed those lives of those children forever. They'll never forget it. It will stay with my son forever. And you're doing nothing.
Now, let's elaborate on this. Paedophilia, sexual attraction to prepubescent children, seems to make everyone in the nation angry and sick at heart. Yet you have had well over 300 complaints, 360 in fact, made against you for this. Do you imagine all those people, none of them who know one another, would conspire to make seriously defamatory and highly detailed complaints about you? 360, Jimmy.
Oh, that's a big number.
Everyone who has ever lodged a complaint about you is wrong, and conversely, you're always right.
That's the way it is.
Quite. DS Pearce.
How regularly do you drive to care homes, bostels and hospitals?
Drive?
Would you have been driving last spring, for example?
Oh, I don't know. I keep swapping cars out, my faintest idea. Could be... Well, I live in the north of England, so I keep most of my vehicles up there. But I keep one down here for running about, so... For that time, it would probably have had a Rolls Royce. Take your pick, anything.
You drive that yourself? And you get someone else to accompany you?
On occasion, I use a chauffeur type thing.
Did you hire a black Negro driver last spring, for example?
Yeah, I did. Paulie, his name was.
Bowden Levy Phillips. You got him to drive you throughout February to July last year, 1978.
If you say so. You're all doing your jobs, so you must know the dates better than I do.
So you got him to drive you in your Rolls Royce to Radio 1 Roadshow in Whitby, I presume.
I expect.
And he helped you abduct and sexually assault and an attempt to rape a 4-year-old girl in Granton Lane, May 17th, 1978.
No, not true.
There seems to be a pattern emerging here. So to be clear, and according to you, there are people in forensics to whom you claim you can give material to have a look, as a favour. You claim you know them, and of course the other unnamed police officers with whom you drink tea at your home was finding amusement in looking over your alleged correspondence. We have confirmed one is DS Jack MacIntyre, even though you deny knowing him. Name any others.
Off the top of my head, I can't at the moment.
Highly trained, highly skilled, highly proficient forensic personnel. But you can't name any of them. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes.
This is a statement manifested from a position without foundation simply to satisfy your craving for attention, isn't it? Don't insult my intelligence.
I didn't expect this, you know.
I'm bloody well certain you didn't. Now, none of the aforementioned complaints, numbering over 300, which were made against you, resulted in charges being brought. However, it is my intention to thoroughly investigate the aforementioned cases we referred to, and in so doing, I have resourced a team of highly trained officers whom I have been working closely with the forensic team in Scotland Yard. And guess what they found, Jimmy?
I'm sure you're about to inform me.
Indeed I am. Well, we have managed to gain fingerprints from a brooch and a headband, those same items which were worn by the young girl in Whitby. The forensics team, upon intensive examination of said items, found adult male fingerprints, which were not those of her brother. So we will be taking your prints shortly, Jimmy Savile. Also found were cigar traces on the clasp. Cigar traces since sourced to Romeo and Julieta Churchill's, the brand you use with alacrity and frequency in an attempt to look impressive for the camera. And lo and behold, here we are. You have one with you, with your prints on the cigar package. How's about that then? In addition, semen stains were found on the person of the young victim, and it can be assumed with little doubt that these emerged from the body of, again, one James Wilson Vincent Savile. Do you have anything to say?
It's out of the question.
On the contrary, it is well within the question that you can offer no answer.
Right. If indeed all these incidents that you refer to, if they did happen, and I'm not saying they did, or that I did them, but if they did happen, the girls deserved it, all of them, especially the young ones, like that one in Whitby you mentioned, she probably liked it, really. They all did, I would, it's what they want, but you'll never pin anything in me. No way, nothing, you'll never put anything in me.
You may regard yourself as being above the law, but you're not. Let me ask you something. Do you have any fears?
What is this? Where's this going?
You see, for some people, their biggest fear may be death. For others, it may be feeling suddenly under threat, under severe physical threat. This is DCI Roger Frampton. Time is 8:37 p.m. and I'm terminating this interview. DS Richards, cease your note-taking now and please leave the room. DS Richards, leave the room! What is about to happen will stay within this room. You cannot and will not report it because, and I do hope you feel the irony here, no one will believe you. No one!
To paraphrase the American writer and poet Ella Wheeler Wilcox, sin by silence when we should protest makes cowards of us all. And despite the guilty failings of those in authority, who are in deep collusion with those of such vile behavior, this must not reduce the volume of our voice. But it's not the young ones who are degenerate. They are not yet spoiled and tainted. It's the older ones, those who have already sunk deep into duplicity and corruption. And make no mistake, the problem of corruption extends far and wide. It's multifaceted, and it's endemic, and it has flourished not just because of opportunity and greed, but because we live in a culture that excels loyalty, celebrity, and untouchability over integrity. Scratching the surface of what is an ongoing epidemic of sexual, physical, emotional, and spiritual abuse. It's like the layers of an onion. The more you peel away, the more you feel like crying.